When we talk about the Apostolic Church in the black community, we are not simply talking about a denomination. We're talking about a survival pattern, a spiritual technology, and a biblical interface that emerged in the middle of oppression, just as it did in Scripture. There's nothing new under the sun. Throughout Scripture, God consistently revealed himself most clearly to people who are displaced, marginalized, enslaved, exiled, silenced, or stripped of power. Israel in Egypt, Israel in Babylon, the early church under Rome, the scattered believers in Acts. In every case, oppression did not destroy identity, it clarified it. It forced God's people to cling to revelation, to community, and to the presence of God. This is the same pattern that reappeared in Black history, in the apostolic experience. During slavery and segregation, black people in America were denied education, legal protection, social belonging, human dignity, the right to define themselves. But they were not denied God. In the hush labors in the fields, in the rooms, back rooms of the house, black believers gathered with a Bible they were not allowed to read, and yet they understood it with clarity that mirrored Israel in Egypt. They saw themselves in the text: Moses confronting Pharaoh, Israel crossing the Red Sea, the prophets crying out for justice, Jesus proclaiming liberty to the oppressed, the early church forming a new identity under persecution. The Bible became a mirror, not a museum. It became a survival manual, not a religious book. From that experience, a new kind of Christianity emerged, one that was experimental, spirit-driven, communal, rooted in identity. By the time the civil rights movement began, the black church had already become a political refuge, a community center, a school, a counseling center, a spiritual hospital, a place of safety and identity. The church was the only institution black people fully controlled, and so it became the headquarters of the movement. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., Fannie Lou Hamer, they were not politicians. They were church people. They preached justice from the pulpits, organized marches in fellowship halls, and prayed strategies into existence. The church shaped the movement. The church shaped the people, and the Spirit shaped the courage. This era taught black community that faith is not passive. Faith is identity. Faith is resistance. Faith is survival. Faith is reformation. When the apostolic movement swept through America in the 1900s, especially through Azusa Street, black believers recognized something familiar: the power of the Spirit, the unity of believers, the breaking of racial barriers, the emphasis on holiness, the experience of God, not just the theory. But as segregation reasserted itself in the church, white Pentecostal and apostolic groups pushed black believers out, not because of doctrine, but because of identity. And once again, the biblical pattern repeated: oppression forced reformation. Black apostolic believers built their own churches, their own fellowships, their own worship styles, their own preaching traditions, their own theological emphasis. They created a worship expression rooted in survival, a holiness culture rooted in dignity, a community structure rooted in safety, a doctrinal clarity rooted in identity, a spirit-centered world view rooted in biblical continuity. A black apostolic church became a place where people could be fully themselves, be fully safe, be fully seen, fully empowered, be fully filled with the Spirit. This was not just a church, it was a home. When students understand this history, they see that the Apostolic Church did not appear randomly. It formed through the same biblical patterns God has always used. Oppression did not weaken the black community. It refined its spiritual identity. The apostolic experience is part of a long lineage of God empowering the marginalized. The Spirit has always moved most powerfully among people who needed Him the most. This course is not just about doctrine. It's about identity formation. It's about understanding how God shapes a people through struggle, revelation, and community. The Black Apostolic Church is a living testimony that when the world tries to erase identity, God restores it. When society denies dignity, God gives purpose. When oppression rises, revelation increases. There's nothing new under the sun. The same God who formed Israel and Egypt, the early church under Rome, and the believers at Azusa Street is the God who formed the Black Apostolic Church. And that story is part of your foundation.